The MCU needs the DCU to succeed. All right. And so you're probably sitting there saying, why? That's competition. But competition is a good thing for you, right? And it's a good thing for all around. For the easiest instance I can use is NBA 2K. NBA 2K was trying to be innovative when NBA Live was out, and it was actually competition where you had these different games. You had to be different. You had to be something that would gravitate towards fans, right? So they tried different ways. They tried better gameplay, more different graphics and stuff like that. And eventually 2K became the major player in the NBA basketball video game landscape. And now they've fallen off a cliff. They are microtransactions out the wazoo. They are trash in almost every aspect because they don't innovate. The game that you played 10 years ago is the game that you're playing now, just with more sweat and more lights. That is basically what it is. And Marvel is kind of going down that path where they kind of knocked off all the other competition with the Fox universe and somewhat the Sony universe. And DC kind of did it to themselves. Whereas to the point where Marvel is the big guy in the industry in terms of superhero comic book adaptations, right? In terms of universes, basically. They were the gold standard. They were the golden child, right? And so the reason this video came to mind is because I was catching up on the Fantastic Four films, because by the time you've seen this, Fantastic Four movie is out in theaters, right? So I watched Fan4stick, right? And I watched a bunch of retrospectives about what happened, why did this movie became what it was, and why it's so bad, right? And one of the things that they brought up was, in numerous videos, was that Fox at that time was known for meddling and messing with scripts and interrupting what the director wanted, their story, their vision, right? And it caused a bunch of creative differences, right? And that is one of the main reasons that, if you really sit and think about it, why did the MCU become so popular and so big in the comic book movie franchise, is because they made good to decent product compared to their competitors. Like, let's be honest here. When the Avengers was coming out, when Avengers Age of Ultron and before Avengers Infinity War, around that time and era when it was really building up towards Endgame, it was a lot of different comic book movies coming out at that time because everyone wanted to catch up to Marvel. You had the DCEU with the whole Snyderverse films. You had Fox's X-Men. You had Fan4stick. You had Amazing Spider-Man, right? All around those times of like early 2010s where everyone had a comic book movie that they was trying to make into a universe, right? But then you had the gold standard of Marvel where they knew what they were doing. They were consistent. They were reliable. They were, no matter what you were doing, you were having, no matter the Marvel's worst film, well, let me be more clear. The MCU's worst film is miles better than Fox's or Sony's worst film. It's not even close. I will watch Thor: The Dark World any day of the week over New Mutants, okay? I'm not watching New Mutants ever again in my life. I'm not watching Fan4stick again ever in my life, right? And so, unless it's for a, research purposes, you know what I mean? But yeah, so that's why Marvel really became good. Like, obviously, it was good quality. It started to do this build up. Everyone followed the story. They wanted to see how it ended. It became a global moment and event. But in its heyday, in his earlier stages, in his adolescence, the reason why it became so good and so well was because, hey, this is the one that actually cared about being a comic book property. This is the one that actually cared and wanted to be a comic book film. They didn't have their characters dressed in black leather because it was afraid of the source material, basically. And so the Marvel MCU became the darling in a lot of comic book fans at that point, right? And every other company kind of fell off. Well, now it's at a point where it's kind of like the reverse, where it's like, yes, the big dog is here. The big dog is becoming stagnant, just like 2K, right? And so it needed competition to breathe in fresh air. And that's why I think DCU needs to succeed, right? So with Superman out now, and everyone's seeing it and how they're preaching the praises of James Gunn and the DC universe, everyone is excited to see where their universe goes, right? And everyone is excited to see where it takes us. And I think James Gunn is doing a beautiful thing. And as much as times I knock him constantly being online and replying to people and stuff like that, like, and also like being online 24/7 but not answering the criticisms of the stuff that comes on online, I can't sit here and lie to you and say that I didn't enjoy Superman. I made a whole review. I was smiling ear to ear the entire movie. This is what I wanted in a Superman film, right? And so the DCU, especially with Supergirl, depending on how it's going, how like they had Another thing it seems like James Gunn is learning from Marvel. That's basically what I'm saying. Where all the issues that people had with Marvel, it seems to be getting fixed with the DCU. Well, one of the main issues that people had, especially the VFX workers there, was like Marvel would crunch and kind of like drive you into the ground with so much work that they need done in a short amount of time, right? And that's why people had issues with, wow, this CGI doesn't look great, or there's issues with the way this movie looks, especially like in the later Marvel with like Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, where it looked like people were not even in the same room at the same time. It was like, what is this? This doesn't look even close to being realistic. Of course, they're in a pocket dimension kind of sort of, right? But it's like, this needs to look at least tangible, like someone is actually, this place actually exists to some degree, you know what I mean? I feel like with Supergirl, it's already done filming, and how like they had, I think it's been over a year for the VFX artists to work on their craft and work on this the CGI to make it look as best as possible. It's stuff like that where it's like they're avoiding all the roadblocks Marvel did. And it's like, yes, Marvel's the blueprint, but it's like, this is going to be like iron sharpens iron, where people are going to look at the DCU, and if this does blow up to be as big as Marvel in the MCU, which I very much hope so, right? If it blows up to be that big and successful, they're going to look at the MCU as like, yo, why aren't y'all doing this? Why aren't y'all being more closer to the source material? Why aren't y'all handling the characters like the DCU is handling characters? Why aren't y'all letting directors be more creative in what they're making, in the art that they're making? And letting there be one-off stories. Like, not everything has to be connected, right? And the stuff that is connected, it has to actually build up to something that you have ready and prepared. You know what I mean? Not just this random event that you threw together because an issue happened with one of your stars, which is a big thing that happened, right? It's not like I can sit there and gloat the praises of the DCU because they haven't went through something like that, right? But at the same time, it feels like Avengers Doomsday is kind of like thrown together last minute, where you constantly having new writers come in. Like the guy who wrote Loki is now writing a script for Avengers Doomsday, but they've been filming for the past few months. So what are we doing here with delays and setbacks and all stuff like that? It's like they kind of just announced something just for the shock value of, hey, Robert Downey Jr. is coming back from the for Doomsday, and he's going to be playing Doctor Doom, without actually having a tangible idea of what they're doing with the story, right? It kind of feels very DCEU-esque, where like they're reactionary. Like, it's kind of like they're now, instead of being on the offensive where they're like, hey, DCU announced something, we're gonna announce this. They announced Batman v Superman, boom, Civil War same day. Now they're kind of like on the back, they're pivoting. They're like, whoa. DCU now has Superman, Supergirl, they're doing all these different things all of a sudden. Let's announce Robert Downey Jr. coming back. You know what I mean? And Kevin Feige could come out and say like, hey, we've been planning on Robert Downey Jr. coming back even before Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania came out. But it's like, who's really believing that? You know what I mean? Like, you can sit there and say many things, but there's no way you've been planning that long, these years in advance, and you just now hired a new writer for the movie. It's like, it doesn't add up. And it's like, I would love to sit down and have a conversation. I know they would never want to talk to me. It's like, why would they talk to me on the internet? But there's one of those things where it's like, I really want to sit there and ask these questions of like, okay, what was going through the mind when these things happen, right? And I feel like the DCU is avoiding that in the best way possible, where it's like, hey, we have a plan, we're gonna build it to this, and this. These other films are gonna be on the side, the Clayface movie, or whether it's not gonna be really connected to anything, or if it is, we'll let you know. It's very transparent, and it's like, okay, boom, where you can kind of see, we don't know what the end game is gonna be. We don't know what they're building up to their big event. We don't know if there's gonna be a Justice League movie 5 years from now or 10 years from now, right? But what we do know is they're doing something. They have an idea. They have a goal in mind of what they want to do. And it kind of feels like Marvel is like kind of just waddling in the dark and kind of relying on, hey, y'all know Marvel. Y'all know that MCU, we were the big boys in town. It's kind of like when you leave and you go to college and you come back and it's the same friend that's been there the entire time. And they're like, hey, you know, remember I used to play ball with you in high school? It's like, yeah, I have a kid now and I have a house. Like, what? Like, I'm not, like, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? It kind of feels like that. Like, Marvel is leaning that way. I'm not saying that Marvel is dead. I'm not one of those people, I said this in the past, I said this in many videos, I'm not one of those Marvel is dead, Marvel is back, Marvel is dead type thing. Because if you really want to sit there and count up the positives films to the negative films, Marvel has been mostly positive in terms of their releasing or what they're doing in terms of projects, right? I feel like that's mostly an internet thing, especially after people are just feeling the superhero fatigue, and the superhero fatigue is not even because of superhero movies. I said this also in the past. It is because people are tired of mediocre films. And so in the early 2010s, when mediocre was better than whatever else was on the market, people were okay with it. They were like, hey, I got issues with Marvel, Thor: The Dark World and stuff like that, but I can handle it because it's so much better than what's currently on the market. So much better than Fan Four Stick. It's so much better than X-Men, Last Stand, and Dark Phoenix, or New Mutants. You know what I mean? Like, I will much rather watch a mediocre MCU film than watch a bad non-MCU film. You know what I mean? You have the DCU where like they're avoiding all these different mistakes that Marvel made. And you're sitting there, and Marvel can't rely on their previous, what we used to do. We're like, hey, you don't really got anything else. It's kind of like they were trying to pull a 2K thing, right? And so, also another positive of the DCU being alive and well, and how you needed the competition is it avoids superhero fatigue. Because if people don't like the Marvel formula, there is something else that you're gonna find. Like, if you don't like the way people are handling the MCU, you'll be like, okay, cool, I don't have to watch the MCU. I can go watch the DCU. I can go watch Clayface, a body horror film. I can go watch Superman and get full of that hopium again. I can go watch The Dark Knight. I can go watch Batman Brave and the Bold. I can go watch Supergirl and stuff like that. And then it leads to more and more diverse audiences between both parties, because then you have people that's like, hey, I want to watch this. Hey, I want to watch that. Or bring people more interested into the product. And I feel like it's just like rising tides lift all boats type of thing, where like the more successful DCU is, the more successful the MCU will be. And so I feel like that the MCU is kind of like wishing and hoping the DCU thrives, because if the DCU dies and Marvel just stays the main player, I feel like it's gonna slowly like erode the superhero genre to the point where everyone's just gonna get bored of it, kind of, sort of. But those are my thoughts. Let me know what y'all think. Do you think the DCU is a positive, negative for the industry? You know, I'll be in the comments down below, and I'm out. Peace.